This week, will you be heading out to the tennis courts with Zendaya or staying at home with a Japanese story? A new See It or Skip It starts right now.
See it or skip it. See it or skip it. See it or skip it.
Welcome to this week's episode of See It or Skip It, where we're going to be talking about a show that, honestly, for the past few weeks, I've been desperate to talk about with y'all, but we had to wait until it ended just to make sure I could say this phrase here. Shōgun might be one of the best series to come out this year. This is a limited series, and it is centered around 17th century. This is told through the perspective of John Blackthorne, who's a sailor that shipwrecked off the Japanese coast, who is now in a mix of political factions trying to vie for power, establish themselves as the head as best they can, keeping order, keeping the Japanese tradition, and also giving you one of the best stories that you will see this year. Shōgun is absolutely something that I would say is a must-watch. First of all, the story in this, it is epic in scale. It's detailed. Every character has so much depth to them. It keeps you guessing the entire way, not just in where the characters are going, but also if the characters are going to make it through an episode, much like in the first few seasons of Game of Thrones. And the performances in this are incredible. Some of the standouts for sure goes to Cosmo Jarvis as Blackthorne. I think the way that he is kind of a fish out of water and trying to go through this tradition, but is also a Christian himself and is fighting against the religious battle that's going on between England and Portugal. That is a huge storyline with him, and it's fleshed out so well. He needs a translator through the entire series, and for this you have Anna Sawai as Mariko, who is really the standout of the entire show. I loved her character arc. I loved how they used translation and interpretation in different ways, almost as its own character, to keep you guessing, as well as the characters. Sometimes the translation is not exactly what was being told by whoever it is to the other person. The beautiful part about Shōgun also is that this is just a limited series. So you've got 10 episodes you can binge through. They're on Disney Plus and on Hulu right now. And once that's done, that's the end of the story. This is also adapted from a novel, which was also adapted to another limited series a few years back. But what makes this special really comes from the depth of characters and the writing. The writing in this is so good, and it's one of the best shows that you're going to see. I'm absolutely giving it a see it. There's absolutely nothing that I have to complain about with this series. I have to go back and watch all of this again, look at the writing, look at the parallels and what they did, because there's just so much depth to it. And yeah, definitely check this one out. Now, if you'd rather go into a romantic triangle mixed in with some tennis playing, then you're going to want to check out Challengers, that is out in theaters right now, that's starring Zendaya, Mike Feist, and Josh O'Connor. This is about Zendaya, who plays Tashi, a former tennis prodigy who's turned coach and is married to a champion that's currently on a losing streak. They've been married for quite a while, they have a kid, and that love is starting to wane as the tennis playing is starting to be more of a chore. Maybe he doesn't really want to do that anymore. The strategy for her husband's redemption takes a surprising turn when he's got to face off against his former best friend and her former boyfriend, and all of that comes together in a crazy story about tennis that's not necessarily about tennis, much more about the characters, but is written very well. First, all three leads are at their best with their performances. Zendaya is a standout star for sure, and this is exactly what she's been doing since Dune, since Spider-Man, and as a leading lady in this film, I hope to see much more of her in the future. I love that the story explores relationships. If you know this director, Luca Guadagnino, he's done Call Me By Your Name, he did Bones and all, so he's very much used to doing a romantic relationship set in kind of an insane backdrop and explored in ways that maybe you don't expect. And in that setting with tennis, he does a lot with the camera work that keeps you engaged throughout the entire thing. If you're a tennis fan, this is definitely a film you want to check out just by the way that they film all of these tennis matches. Sometimes you can be seeing it from one person's perspective, maybe from another, and then sometimes it's just the tennis ball itself being the camera, jumping from one side of the net to the other, and it's so engaging and gripping. It's probably the best engaging tennis matches that I've seen put to screen, and very fun to watch. The characters are well built, and it's tough to root for them also, because at the end of the day, when you sit back and think about the story, they're kind of awful people, all of them, but they're so passionate about what they're doing and in the sport that it keeps you wanting to watch every single part of it. The story is non-linear, so it's going to be jumping around to different periods of their relationships. Sometimes that works, sometimes it feels a little unnecessary, but the biggest problem with Challengers to me comes from the music, because my goodness, I don't know why this director loves techno music so much and decides to blast it during every tennis match, or even just from a regular scene, but it completely overtakes any of the emotion, any of the depth of what you're watching, and just makes you wish that they would turn down the music. But that's not to say that this isn't a really great story and very well written. If you are looking for something that's a sports drama, this is one that's up your alley, and I think you're gonna have a great time, so I'm giving it a see it. Also, following Shōgun, if you're not wanting to watch something in theaters and maybe just binge watch an entire season of something, the video game adaptation Fallout is on Prime Video and it's completely finished. You can watch the entire season, and that ends up being a pretty fun watch as well. It takes place in a future post-apocalyptic LA that's brought about by a nuclear decimation. The citizens must live in an underground bunker to protect themselves from radiation, mutants, people above, people below, and it's following different characters in different circumstances. The first character has been living in a bunker for a very long time and has to come to the surface after a tragedy happens where her father has been abducted. And then we have your gunslinging wild card, in this place played by Walter Goggins, who I love that he's finally getting his due and is getting a character that he can really sink his teeth into, and he does a great job in this. I think that's the character that stole most of the scenes for me. Video game adaptations are often hit or miss, especially if you're looking back in the previous days of the Super Mario Brothers or any of the first Mortal Kombat movies, and I think that stems from the creators not having a lot of say in their adaptation. And in this, you don't have that. The creators of the video game are working with the creators of the show, and I think that synergy is what makes the story so good. It's not ashamed to go to different kooky, weird places that actually work for what they're trying to do here. When it comes to set design, when it comes to some of the creatures, or even like the robotic thing that one of our characters is using, maybe it looks silly at first, but the story keeps you so engaged that you almost completely ignore it. And it doesn't hurt to have Christopher Nolan's brother, Jonathan Nolan, helping with this. He's written a couple episodes for it. If you watched Westworld, you know that he helped instrument a lot of great stuff with that, and he's able to bring that special magic with Fallout, and I think he does a great job of making viewers that haven't seen the video game still feel invested, and people that have seen the video game feel rewarded by some of the stuff that maybe they wanted to see that came from the games. This one isn't going to be a wrapped up in one season thing. It is going to be continuing on to season 2, and I believe it's already been greenlit. So if you have a chance and you want to get into a new post-apocalyptic story that's as fun as it is terrifying, bloody, and with depth of characters, Fallout's your thing. And finally, out in theaters this week is Boy Kills World, starring Bill Skarsgård as a man out on a mission. He's deaf, and he's being voiced by H. Jon Benjamin, if you know from Bob's Burgers or from Archer. He's on a mission to try to find the people that killed his family and get revenge, and he's getting that with the help of Yayan Ruyan. If you've known him from any of his action films like The Raid, Redemption, or The Raid 2, you know that the fighting in this is going to be some of the best fighting that you'll see this year. And I had so much fun with this crazy film that's likely going to become a cult classic. Like I said, these fights are engaging, but not in the typical sense where the punches are hitting and like having a lot of weight to them. Also in the camera work, there's a lot of first-person drone videography that's going through fights, going through huge fighting sequences with multiple people and showing those fights in a visual way that really I haven't seen before. The use of those drones, the use of making some of the fighting feel like you're in a video game, working the controls for the character itself, are really engaging and fun to watch. The story is a very simple revenge story, and they do a great job of keeping it that way without giving too much secrets away for what the story is. But I wish we could have gotten a little more depth with our characters, maybe explored some of the supporting characters' storylines a bit more. And because of how crazy this movie is, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of gore. It's not going to be for everybody, and I know that already going into this review. So when I'm saying it's a cult classic, this is going to find its way probably when it comes to VOD on digital. When somebody finds it as they're scrolling through Netflix and not knowing what to watch, they'll find this. It'll end up being one of their favorite movies of the year that they recommend to everybody. It's also a fun movie that you can see in a group. I would recommend, if you're wanting to watch a fun fight film this weekend in the theaters, go with a group of your friends, go see Boy Kills World, and you're gonna have a great time. I'm giving it a see it. And that's it for this week's See It or Skip It. Make sure that you check out more by going to abc4.com, clicking the shows tab, and then See It or Skip It. Make sure you follow me on all the social media platforms, especially for this upcoming week, because I'll be doing a couple fun things that you're gonna really wanna be checking out on social media for. Once again, thank you so much as always for watching, and I will see you at the next review.
See it or skip it. See it or skip it. See it or skip it.